On this week's 51%, we recognize National Breastfeeding Month and learn some tips and tricks from lactation consultant Cara Banks.
Seek out help. Don't be ashamed because it is hard. Having help can make the world of difference.
We also speak with singer-songwriter Girl Blue about how she balances music with motherhood. I'm Jessie King. It's all up next on 51%.
I was standing around like one of those girls I had seen in a movie. The whole world was a movie back then. I had my sunglasses on, I wanted to be seen without seeing Shiloh leader. I wasn't really in it, I didn't really get it.
You're listening to 51%, a WAMC production dedicated to women's issues and experiences. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jessie King. August is National Breastfeeding Month to help spread awareness of the benefits of breastfeeding and increase resources for new moms. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's latest breastfeeding report card found roughly 83% of babies born in the U.S. start out breastfeeding, but by the 6-month mark, only about 25% of babies are receiving breastfeeding exclusively. Breastfeeding is hard. There's a lot of reasons why moms might switch to formula or not breastfeed altogether, and that's okay. The CDC says any amount of breastfeeding can be beneficial to your infant, but if you're hoping to do it for the long haul and want some tips, our main guest today is here to help. Cara Banks is an international board-certified lactation consultant with her own virtual and in-person practice called Heirloom Lactation. Since 2017, she's been helping moms and babies in New York's capital region, where she lives with her husband and her 2 daughters. Banks was actually a teacher for 10 years, but she says she decided to switch careers after struggling to breastfeed her first child.
After the birth of my first daughter, I really struggled with breastfeeding. I didn't realize what it was going to be. It was a lot emotionally, physically. So I wound up going back to the hospital where I delivered my daughter, and I met with a lactation consultant there, and it was a game changer. Just having someone who knew what they were looking for with breastfeeding, and just to kind of help me with positioning and latch, and it was like 180-degree turnaround. And I just thought, wow, like I had no idea that lactation consulting was even a thing and that it was covered by my health insurance. Knowing that that was actually out there and what a difference it made for me made me want to get into it. I actually started volunteering with La Leche League. It's an international nonprofit organization of volunteers who are trained in, the basics of breastfeeding, and we support moms through community support group meetings and one-on-one help through text and email. I was connecting with all these other moms and just kind of seeing the support within the community, in addition to the support that comes from healthcare providers. And so kind of just putting all of these pieces together, I was like, I'm going to take this one step further. Instead of a volunteer, I'm going to go back to school and learn how to be a lactation consultant. So now every day I help moms with all sorts of breastfeeding issues, whether that's pain while breastfeeding or engorgement or positioning and latch, weaning, anything, the whole gamut of breastfeeding issues.
So one reason that I kind of wanted to have this conversation is that I think, there's this misconception out there that because breastfeeding is natural, that must mean it's easy, or that if you have a difficult time with it, then that's a reflection on you somehow. And I think, your experience in your job is very much proof that that is not the case. That is not true. So what do you see as some of the most common obstacles that moms run into when trying to breastfeed?
Well, kind of twofold is baby is struggling to latch, or that latch is very painful. And I think what moms don't understand, and maybe it's part of our cultural situation, we don't really see breastfeeding a lot just happening out in the world. But what moms don't understand is that in order to breastfeed a baby and have them stay latched, they need to have a pretty big mouthful of breast. And so moms kind of just position baby and try to let them latch on, but it doesn't really work out because they don't get that big, wide open mouth and that deep latch that we're looking for that's pain-free. So like if you take your own tongue and you touch the roof of your mouth, you can feel toward your teeth, your palate is very hard. But then as you move your tongue back toward your throat, you feel how your palate gets soft. Our goal is to get the mom's nipple all the way back to that soft part of the palate. And that's really far back there. And so moms don't realize that baby needs to have a big, wide open mouth and they need to get a big mouth to make that latch be pain free. If baby is dealing with a shallow latch, then they're not going to transfer very much milk from breast to belly because they're kind of just pinching and not a lot of milk is able to flow. And so I think what I do mostly is just counsel moms on how to position their baby to get that deeper, more comfortable, pain-free latch so that breastfeeding doesn't hurt and baby gets lots of milk.
I know it might be hard to describe over the radio versus like showing a picture, but I guess when you're talking about getting that deeper latch, how should you position your baby to help get that latch?
You want to make sure that baby is turned completely toward mom. So lots of times you'll see the baby with their head turned and kind of their shoulders and hips facing away. So if you can just turn the baby toward mom so that, baby's face and shoulders and hips are all in line and they're all facing mom. And then also leaning back. Like lots of moms you'll see, they'll sit upright and they're kind of like, baby's kind of dangling and falling away from them. If mom can lean back and allow gravity to hold the baby onto them a little bit better, then that can be huge because baby now feels sturdy and stable and able to be lined up to latch. If baby's falling away because gravity is pulling them away because mom is sitting upright, it's going to be really hard for them to feel sturdy enough to latch. Like I don't want to be on like a wobbly stool falling away from my food when I'm eating either. So it's the same for a newborn.
How long do the women you work with typically end up breastfeeding for?
Good question. I mean, it varies so much. It really depends on the individual situation. Some moms will breastfeed for a few weeks and realize it's not working out for them. They have to return to work. They don't have access to a pump, so they can continue to, stimulate their milk supply while they're at work. And others will nurse until their babies are well past toddlerhood. I would say on average, the people that I see, their goal is to make it to a year. And most of them get there as long as they have access to the resources that they need to continue for as long as they want to.
Well, I think that's a good point because people might also underestimate just how much work feeding in general is and how much time and resources are involved in breastfeeding. I don't have any children myself, but I remember being very surprised, and maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was, when I learned that newborns eat like every couple hours consistently. It's constant.
That's a huge part of lactation consulting too, is just managing expectations because moms expect, like you said, for it to be easy and for it to kind of fit into kind of their current schedule of life. But like you said, babies need to eat every 2 to 3 hours and they don't always feed like that. They're not always on that nice, even like, okay, I'm going to eat at 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock and noon. They eat at 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, and then they take a long break, and people call that the cluster feeding pattern. And it's normal and healthy, but it also makes moms freak out because they're like, oh my gosh, why is my baby eating so often? They must be really hungry. But it's a normal newborn behavior. And just having that expectation, understanding that before your baby arrives can be huge for a mom.
Well, on that note, this might be a silly question, but how do you know that your baby is eating enough?
That's a great question. So babies, if it's going out, then it must be going in. So we look to make sure that baby is having at least 3 stools per day after mom's milk transitions from colostrum to mature milk. Because as when mom is pregnant, usually during the end of the second trimester, they start to see some colostrum. And then once baby is born, that colostrum starts to transition from this thick, sticky, super high in immunoglobulins and fats and stuff to mature milk, which is, higher volume. And so we know that baby's getting enough if when that milk transitions, they're pooping, they start to gain weight. So babies, after mom's milk comes in, they should start to gain about 3/4 of an ounce to an ounce per day. That's why they eat so much. They're gaining weight really fast. Um, and also just observing signs of milk transfer. So when a baby is eating, you can kind of see the difference between what's called non-nutritive nursing and nutritive nursing. So if baby is getting lots of milk, you're going to see their jaw drop really low when they swallow. You'll hear them swallowing. You'll see a change in their behavior from when they first latch on to when mom's milk lets down and they start to really get into a rhythm of suck, swallow, breathe. So there are lots of indicators, but just being able to recognize those can be difficult if you've never done it before.
If you're getting ready to go back to work, is there a way that you're supposed to, I guess, transition or navigate pumping to incorporate that into your schedule and plan ahead?
If you're going back to work, first of all, you want to make sure if baby's only ever latched at the breast to eat, that they're able to take a bottle. Some babies, if they've only ever been exclusively breastfed at the breast, they lose their involuntary suck reflex. Usually that starts to integrate around 8 to 12 weeks, and they kind of don't know how to suck on a bottle. So when a baby is first born, anything you put between their tongue and their palate, they're going to suck on. But when that suck reflex integrates, they stop knowing how to take a bottle. Just kind of practicing with the bottle if you know you have to return to work, that's important. But then in terms of pumping, usually for the first few weeks after birth, we discourage moms from pumping unless it's necessary, unless baby's struggling to latch. You don't need to pump. You want to make sure that that baby is latching directly at the breast, establishing milk supply so that you don't create an oversupply. Because if you're nursing and then pumping in addition to that, your body's like, what happened? Did I have twins? Like, I need to make a lot of milk. So we discourage moms from pumping for the first few weeks. And then after that, just add in like one pumping session a day. Usually like first thing in the morning is best after baby's first thing in the morning feed. You pump just for 10 to 15 minutes. And then you start to save up that milk until you have a full bottle to offer your baby. And then once you've got that full bottle, you're sort of set up to get started with real pumping. Baby gets the bottle, and then you pump the equivalent of whatever they took in the bottle, because breastfeeding is supply and demand. So whatever they demand, you want to supply. So then you pump, and then once you return to work, that's when you want to kind of match whatever baby takes. So while you're at work, you pump whatever baby is going to need for the next day. And yes, breast milk does go bad, but it's good in the refrigerator for 4 to 6 days and in the freezer for 4 to 6 months. So if you have like a deep freezer or a chest freezer, it's good for a whole year. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Well, lastly, Cara, I think it would be wrong not to ask this for National Breastfeeding Month. So before I forget, let's talk about the benefits to breastfeeding. Why do we do it?
Yeah, so I mean, there are so many benefits for both mom and baby. For baby, breast milk contains literally everything that the baby needs. It's the perfect balance of protein, carbohydrates, fats, micronutrients, all of the good probiotics and prebiotics and immunoglobulins and antibodies, like literally everything baby needs. And it helps with bonding when you are holding your baby close and snuggling them and nursing them. It's really a special moment for you and your baby. And there's just so many health protections as well. Babies don't get their first immunizations until they're a couple of months old. And so just having the peace of mind knowing that they're getting those good antibodies from your breast milk, especially if you have a baby who's born in the winter and all the germs are around, that's a huge benefit. And for mom, of course, it decreases the risk of so many different health issues, type 2 diabetes, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, in addition to, just being a great time to spend with your baby. So yeah, there's so many benefits. That's just the short list.
Well, Cara, thanks so much for taking the time. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want people to know?
I would just say know that help is out there. It is hard. Breastfeeding is natural and beautiful and can be very empowering. but it's also really hard. Just know that there's help out there, and you can seek out the help of a lactation consultant, and it's covered by your insurance, even prenatally, just to prepare for what to expect when baby arrives. There are community support out there like La Leche League and Baby Cafe and all sorts of other community lactation circles through your hospital. And so, yeah, seek out help. Don't be ashamed, because it is hard, and having help can make the world of difference.
Cara Banks is an international board-certified lactation consultant with Heirloom Lactation, based in New York's Capital Region. You can learn more about her work at heirloomlactation.com. Even if you don't know it, you've already heard our next guest. Arielle O'Keefe is a singer-songwriter based in New York's Capital Region who has been performing under the moniker Girl Blue since 2017. Her first EP, called Fire Under Water, has been featured on some of Spotify's top playlists, and her song Lolita has been our theme song for the past few years. In describing her music, O'Keefe says, quote, "If you like Alanis Morissette, Brandi Carlile, and crying in public, you're going to love Girl Blue." This time last year, O'Keefe was working on her next EP with her producer and partner, Jimmy W., who is a musician in his own right, but the record was understandably postponed to make way for the couple's first daughter, Bonnie, who was born in April. Now O'Keefe is back in the studio and easing back into public performances, but with a whole new perspective. The couple brought Bonnie along to speak with our associate producer, Jody Cowan, about balancing their creative careers with parenthood.
What has been the parenting experience been so far?
Oh my gosh, it's what everyone says. I mean, it just changes everything so much. I know.
It's the best.
It's yeah, it really is, and it just furthers all that work that you're already doing on yourself, and all the getting real and all that. Whew.
Well, it causes you to have to reaffirm your vows to what you thought you were and what you thought you were doing. You actually have to make a choice. You know, your life is not open-ended anymore.
Yeah, a lot more formless time comes into form. So you're like, it's very clarifying. That's what I keep talking about with everyone.
It's very hard.
But it's also really easy, but then it's, you know, we're still so new at it, too.
So trippy, man.
I'm still, like, coming out of the whole experience of growing her and having her and all that. So, But, yeah, it's incredible.
It's great.
And getting to sing to your kid is...
10 out of 10.
Is wow.
I would imagine you both come from households that were full of music. Were there any moments this far in this first year that have been like these full circle, oh, hey, this was this kind of memory from my childhood in the music that's now you guys had this opportunity to present again?
Mostly with when we had the stereo up and we were playing like James Taylor and stuff.
Yeah.
And thinking about my early musical memories of hearing James Taylor, and my dad loved James Taylor, so I naturally gravitated towards that, and just weird stuff, thinking, oh, she's hearing the Beatles for the first time.
Everything is new.
As independent artists, I'm sure that there's, your individual bills kind of dictate some of the trajectory of what it is that you're working on and when. But as far as I think, Arielle, last time I talked to you, there was an album that you were working on. We were talking about trying to get an interview to kind of promote the album. And then it was like, actually, on second thought, I'm going to do this baby thing. I'll talk to you. People talking about a year,
Yeah.
and having the ability and the freedom to do that.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's what I would have always hoped for and wanted in my life. And we don't live lavishly, but I couldn't ask for anything more. It's like we're working at home, and, we're going to be out. I'm starting up gigs again in the fall, so we will be out, but we're here with her, and that's just everything. Yeah, couldn't have planned it better.
And we're not beholden to having to be on the road and touring. And
yeah, we're basically just trying to set it up that we can make whatever records we want when we want to make them, and put them out. And we have our hands in enough different pots that we can make it work. And very cool.
It's cool.
As far as the studio sessions and the creative work, has parenthood changed that at all? That process, the sparks, the things that are coming around?
I think it's just made me more serious,
Like
more
super motivated.
really motivated, and more concerned with the math of all of it. Because if I want to do this, if I want to be a producer and a mixing engineer and do all that, I need to get concerned with the ones and the zeros,
Yeah.
as well as the reds and the blues.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, imagine the idea of success kind of, shifts a little bit with parenthood for sure. So I know, Ariel, you kind of mentioned the idea of being in a different place with your career now potentially than Jimmy might be.
Yeah, for sure. I feel that. I mean, I just feel like a completely different person. So there's something really beautiful in that, but it's like learning how to exist in the unknown and not freak out. And I don't feel like I'm freaking out, but I'm curious what the next sort of season will bring musically. I do body that pressure sometimes, both of like, will people still be interested in what I have to do if it's much more mellow than it used to be? Or if I want to sing differently or write differently, does nobody care? Which is what everyone's thinking about. But ultimately, I don't really care about that because you want to be just engaged with the process.
Right.
Bigger every day, still so small. Little chest heaving, sleeping peaceful. And I've never seen myself so vulnerable. It's true what they say about your heart. It's living outside now of my body. And I wanna be here, but I wanna go back to the start. 'Cause it's too much, I don't know how it's even possible to love someone this much to the bone.
You released To the Bone, which was the first song and single since giving birth there. What was that thought process of getting back to the art and returning as Girl Blue with baby Bonnie in tow here?
Well, it was weird because I've written pretty obsessively my whole life, and when I was pregnant, I didn't finish a single song, and I couldn't really sing. I could kind of sing, but I had this coughing thing, so every time I'd go to sing, I'd cough, which was really limiting. On a more spiritual level, it was some kind of response to like a deep burnout I had in the previous years, where I was kind of like removed of the ability to do it for a period of time because, like you said, we were working on this album and it's really just the vocals that needed to be done. And I kept being like, okay, well, in another month I'll be able to do it. In another month I'll be able to finish it. And then it just kept getting worse and worse. So it was like, well, this isn't happening. And so we're just now actually finishing the vocals for that. But as soon as Bonnie was born, I wrote that song like she wasn't even 2 weeks yet, I think. So it's really been really beautiful to not put force onto that to come back and to not be sure if it will come back, but to then see it coming back, not just in my ability to output, but a desire to want to engage with the process again. That's been really beautiful to see and was really surprising, actually, because I didn't know how I would feel on the other side of it all. You're not promised the creative process will like give back to you, and sometimes you feel like you could put the work in, but you're not able to touch on something that feels like magical or feels like you're really engaging with something. And so to have that start to come back is really awesome. Yeah. And so that was kind of where To the Bone, it felt like a very simple song, but it just came out really quickly. There it was. And then we were able to record it the next day.
Super quick.
And it captured where I was at. And my voice is still really gravelly and like, not quite back. I've just, gave birth, and it's all saved up in that recording, which is really special.
Yeah. Prior to me working with 51%, your 2018 single, Ariel, Lolita, was chosen as a theme song, kind of heralding in this new dawn of highlighting incredible women on this program. And just was kind of curious if you can kind of tell me about the creation of that song and what it means to you now as a mother to your own daughter.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we just listened to it again, actually.
We did.
Yeah, Jimmy did produce that song, and we were marveling at how far we've come, I think, just in the terms of like sonically how things sound. Totally different me, but I hope that she doesn't have to sing Lolita for herself, because it's some slightly, darker parts of being a woman. I just feel so much older in terms of all of that stuff. I think at that time I was like 2017. I think I wrote it in 2016, 2017. And I was still very much coming out of all that angst, and I hope that she doesn't relate to Lolita very much. I'm sure she will in her ways, but yeah.
I remember knowing you guys at the time period when the song had came out and when the video was out in that process, and just some of the women whose daughters were involved in the video.
Yeah, the coolest thing about that video was that as we sat all these different women down at different stages of life and all that, and asked them, what was your favorite part about being a woman? Or what was your favorite part about growing up being a girl? And not a single one of them could think of something positive. It was like really tough. They were like, ooh, I don't know. I can think about all the things that were really hard. And there were two younger girls, Mabel and Adriana were there, and I don't know how old they were at the time. I want to say they were probably 10 or so.
Yeah.
And at the end, asking them, they both had positive answers. They were like, because we can do whatever we want, and because girl power. And it was a really beautiful thing to see that the next generation, there's been some progress there, hopefully. And they were able to come up with really easily with like fun things about being a girl. So that was awesome. So that's what I would hope for Bonnie, is that she doesn't have to sit there and scratch her head about like what her favorite part about being a woman is. And
going forward, what's the next thing for you both?
Like I said, we're finishing this album for me now, so by the end of the year, it will be out. 7-song EP that was actually funded by Saratoga Arts, and then Jimmy.
Yeah, just producing for different artists, hopefully expand the roster there and get to work on some really cool music. I want to release a lot more of my own music.
He has some ready to go that are just wonderful.
And just trying to get better at all of it.
I love it for you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me here and catch up. And it's just been a wonderful experience just kind of watching you guys work and to see the family blossom here and just to see where the art and the life brings you guys next. I'm excited
man.
for you.
Thanks for having us.
We are too. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
That was Arielle O'Keefe, the singer-songwriter behind Girl Blue, her partner and producer Jimmy W., and their daughter Bonnie, speaking with our associate producer Jody Cowan. You can find O'Keefe's music and upcoming performance dates at girlbluemusic.com. You've been listening to 51%. 51% is a national production of WAMC Northeast Public Radio in Albany, New York. It's produced and hosted by me, Jesse King. Our associate producers are Jody Cowan and Madeline Reynolds, and our theme is Lolita by Girl Blue. Just a reminder that you can listen to 51% anytime at WAMCpodcast.org or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can stay in the loop on all of WAMC's shows by signing up for our weekly newsletter, Airwaves, at WAMC.org. We hope you'll join us next week. Until then, I'm Jesse King for 51%.
I was every single girl, I was nobody else, I was so sure of myself. I was 15 and a half, he was a hollow laugh. And I lost my cool somewhere along the way. At night and down the hallway, I had to learn how to look away. I lost my cool